It is just so wonderful to be with you on the program again. And we are down in the low part of the farm, which is right next to a big wetland. We call it in South Africa, we call it a vlei land. I know in some parts they call it a bog, or they call it a wetland or a swamp. This is a wetland. This wetland goes for hundreds and hundreds of hectares, right up to the base of that mountain, which is behind me. Many a time I come here and I used to be very much quiet before the Lord before going on a big campaign. I would come and sit here sometimes for a whole day just on my own and meditate and speak with the Lord and get a clear word before I got on that big silver bird and traveled overseas on another outreach. I want to speak to you today about a way of escape. How will we survive if we neglect so great a salvation as that? We go to Hebrews chapter 2, and I'm reading verse 3. How shall we escape if we neglect so great a salvation, which at the first began to be spoken by the Lord and was confirmed to us by those who heard him? How shall we escape if we neglect so great a salvation as this? You know, folks, I want to say to you that in this world in which we're living, some of us probably sitting there and you're probably saying, you know, this world's driving me mad. It's like I'm on a treadmill and the treadmill's just going faster and faster and faster and I can't get off it. I understand that. And we need to have a way of escape. We need to come aside and be quiet before the Lord. Now, I want to tell you a story you probably know well if you know me. It's called a postinia. Now, postinia is a Russian word. It's a word for a little place down at the bottom of your garden, like a little garden shed, okay? And the believers will go down there and they will sit in that place and they will spend time in the presence of God. A postinia, that's what it is. It's a quiet time place. I've got one as well, right next to my house. You need to have a postinia. Now, I can hear some of you saying, but I live in a flat up on the 10th floor, or I live in an old age home and I don't have any place. Or I'm in a school hostel or university hostel and I can't get on my own. Now, there's a postinia in your mind. Okay? Now, I can hear somebody saying, this is positive thinking. No, it's not positive thinking. This is having a safe place in your mind. Now, as you know, I travel a lot. My second home, and I'm sorry to say this, is a departure lounge in an airport. That's right. And sometimes in between flights, there might be 2 or 3 hours that I've got to sit. Now, what do? I go into my postinia. How do I do that? Well, I make sure I've got my boarding pass in my top pocket, okay? And then I find a quiet place very near the boarding gate, and I sit down and I close my eyes. And I'm going to describe to you what my postinia looks like in my mind. In Zambia, where they have got a memorial of Dr. David Livingstone where he died, there's a beautiful quiet place there. And you walk down a little path, also down towards a wetland, very similar to this one. And I sit on the side of a log on the side of the path. I can hear the birds singing. I can see all the indigenous trees. And then I start to speak to the Lord. And he speaks to me in my heart. And then I hear the flight being called, time for boarding. I get up, I'm refreshed, and off I go to my next appointment. Don't forget your quiet time.